Did it start yet? I hope it started. Hello and welcome everyone to the 4th of September edition of the weekly meeting of Working Group AI Conformance. Please be advised that this meeting is under the Code of Conduct of the Kubernetes project, which in short means be excellent to your fellow attendees and speakers. I will paste a link to the note stock into the chat. Please add yourself to this note stock as attendee. If you have trouble editing this document, you need to be subscribed to the Working Group AI Conformance mailing list, which is on top of the note stock. We are also looking for a note taker. Anyone volunteering for note taking? If not, thank you, Laura. Let me share my screen to the note stock. All right. Updates. As last week, we came to the agreement for all of the musts. Basically, the next step was to move everything into the AI conformance repository on the CNCF side, because as agreed upon, the initial version will be a self assessment. So the self-certification questionnaire has now been moved to the YAML file inside of the repository. Thanks to Janet for doing this. As you can see, this instruction file is not yet great. Hopefully by next week we will have some more written instructions, but this also requires communication with some of the CNCF folks, and a lot of the project team are out this week, and we are basically waiting for feedback. There has been a discussion last week also regarding versioning, and we want to re-emerge this whole discussion again. So the initial idea was to call it Conformance version 0.1, and the organizers of this working group had a chat together, and we think that it might be complicated for companies if we don't follow the Kubernetes release cadence from the very beginning. So the proposal would be that we will basically change this to again follow the Kubernetes release cadence, so that for every Kubernetes release, basically your product needs to fulfill the AI conformance after they fulfilled, obviously, the Kubernetes conformance for this release, because this would simplify the understanding, and also the it would follow the Kubernetes conformance in itself, and eliminate any issues there. And also, to make this harder for changes, the idea would be that the conformance program follows also the release process, which means that it will go to that we have basically, when the code freeze and or the documentation freeze hits, that after this point there cannot be any change to the conformance for this release, so that we don't run into the issue that a new thing moved to must, for example, and companies cannot keep up with this anymore for this release. I had it. Sorry, my cats just broke something. I had a chat with with the release team how a process like this would look like. So we would need to fill in a proposal for release. SIG release is generally open on this whole topic. It would mean a little bit more work for them, but this is something that they would agree to do, so that we basically then have like code freeze also for the for changes to the conformance program. And given this as a long talked introduction, I would like to give this topic over to the group if something speaks against this, or if there are any concerns or any remarks to this. If no one wants to say anything, I think it's a good idea and everyone accepts it. Great, this was an easy discussion. Thanks for joining. No, just kidding. Great. Then let's move into open topics. Of course, we now fixed the musts, and we want to move on with the shoulds and go over the shoulds. So basically, let's dive into the document again. And we can go from the top. Accelerator, driver, and runtime management. I will quickly read it out and then we can go step by step. Should provide a verifiable mechanism for ensuring that compatible accelerator drivers and corresponding container runtimes one question in the chat: should there be an action item to open the request for SIG release on the document? Yeah, I would add it to the to our notes, and you can tag me because I raised the topic. Going back, provide a verifiable mechanism for ensuring that compatible accelerator drivers and corresponding container runtime configurations are correctly installed and maintained on the nodes with accelerators. Must expose drivers versions via DRA attributes, for example, dra.vendor.com/driver-version, which can be standardized by Kubernetes. Nodes must be accurately reported an unhealthy status or error condition related to the accelerator if it is incompatible. Any remarks or discussions to this?
Does this kind of make the second one obsolete, because we're including the must expose driver versions and then there's a should expose driver version in the second one? So either we might need to like remove that bullet point, or is there like a different way of doing this? Or like what is meant with the second one if this one already includes the exposing driver versions? Another thing that I was thinking, should this not be a must? Like without drivers, what does work? Are there platforms that where like without a driver you can run the things that we want them to run, like in later on, like Ray? Or
Matt, go ahead.
So I think the reason that it's not a must with this is the existing tools today don't offer it. So many people are going to use the tools provided by the vendors on it, such as the NVIDIAs and the AMDs of the world, and their existing tool chains don't provide the driver version in this way using DRA. And until that technology is available, you know, people aren't going to go build this on their own. So until that's available, making this a must means that almost nobody's going to be able to be certified. So I think that's the reason it bumped down from a must to a should. Also, if I remember right, and somebody may remember better, when we were talking about DRA, it is very new and still being worked out, and it's in its early stages. So there's a lot of unknowns there, and waiting for DRA to become a little bit more mature and well understood and how it's going to be used before making it a should would also be useful, or before making it a must would be useful. And I think those were the reasons behind it. I'm I'm not sure what to do with this personally as a should, because it's one of those things that I would like to eventually see and make sense. But it's also one of those things that needs to be worked out with the vendors who do a lot of this work. And I'd be curious of their opinions on this, whether they're going to do it, timetables, thoughts like that. Um, because ultimately a lot of this will rest on them.
I believe Kevin was next. Go ahead.
Yeah, I guess I was. So for this, we are requiring that this has to be exposed as a DRA attribute, and like if there's a device plugin, they can't also provide this. It says here DRA, but I like there is an option that somebody could expose drivers for a device plugin. But, yeah, that was, I guess, my question.
Rural.
Mentioned in the chat. So I was going to ask about shouldn't all these DRA related items be moved to the DRA conformance program that John had proposed, I think maybe 2-3 weeks ago, which can go into much more detail similar to the Gateway API conformance program.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
put that in the chat as well. There's an ongoing discussion in Slack. If you want to give your +1 to that, please do so, because this is where I think the device management working group is also looking for feedback, right? Because it's more work for them as well.
Yeah, exactly. I think then that all these should probably be removed and it should be covered under the DRA conformance program.
So, but
Pujo.
maybe like concretely, just based on what Matt was mentioning, I think then like removing the driver version from the first item and making that a should, but having drivers installed, that has to be a must, right? Like, I mean, you cannot do anything without drivers. If you remove the DRA from that item, then it's again feasible, right? Because then you could use, I don't know, NVIDIA GPU operator or whatever you want. I don't know, Flatcar GPU installation services, and you get the drivers.
Yeah, you're talking
Because
about
without the drivers, you won't be able to do anything.
Yeah.
No matter if they support DRA or not.
Amita.
Yeah. If we're just trying to expose the driver version, why does it have to be DRA? I'm piggybacking on Kevin and I forgot who spoke last, but the device plugin operator, there's like multiple places where they could be exposing this information. Is there a reason that it has to be DRA? I know it's required for DRA, but does it have to be exposed via DRA?
I mean, at least not currently for a functional system.
Right. Because you could use a device plugin, operator, what have you, to like get the drivers up and running. And as long as they're running, that's all that we care about, unless I'm missing something here.
I think the long-term direction of the community is to moving towards DRA. And we're waiting for that to get mature before we can change those requirements from should to must. So this signals the direction we're going.
Okay, so then it makes sense then to have it as a DRA. It's probably gonna get it from an underlying device plugin or operator, what have you, but having it in one place makes sense. Rita, I know your hand is up. Just responding. Thank you.
Rita, go ahead.
Yeah, and I just want to mention I don't think all accelerators are DRA compliant yet, so that's also why it's a should, right? Because we don't want to, again, kingmakers, right? So we want to make it neutral. Having said that, if the whole community is going towards DRA, then hopefully that's enough ammunition for other accelerators to catch up. But only then we can make it a must, right? Otherwise, it's like there are other options out there. So hope that makes sense.
Yeah, which is basically why I said, like, let's split DRA and driver requirements. Because driver requirements do apply even without DRA.
When you say driver, do you mean device?
Provide a mechanism to ensure there is a compatible accelerator driver on a node that has an accelerator. That's something that is needed on any system that supports AI.
I just want to
am I
clarify.
mistaking there?
Being the like GPU drivers, not the DRA
Yes.
drivers.
Yeah, just the GPU driver, right? Accelerator driver. That's what it says, right? Mario.
Yeah, I would also agree to remove the must expose the driver version out of this because it's redundancy. And then we would basically have this split of concerns that you can say, okay, we have one rule that we have for the ensuring the that we have the capability of having a driver and that we can report unhealthy status of those nodes that are running the GPU or TPU or whatever. And then we also have the second thing that we can basically use for now we are pushing folks into the direction of DRA.
Sounds good.
Rita, your comment, but how is the accelerator driver version exposed is not standardized? I mean that's what we approach with the second should that follows up on this. But so we just splitting it out so that it's not like one rule, so that we can potentially make sure first one rule and then the other rule based on the proceedings of the development of technology.
So is it first we are advertising it, and then second is is this group going to try to standardize how that's advertised?
I mean, DRA group needs to do that, right? And then we can help push it, but we're not changing DRA, right?
Yeah, basically,
Right, so,
if DRA is changing this in a specific path, and now they say like this is our standard for advertising of versions, then we basically adopt the outcome from the DRA group. That would be my understanding. Kevin, go ahead.
It seems like maybe what the confusion is that I don't know how standard like driver version is for like, you know, NIC or AMD GPUs or any of these things. So it feels, I mean, the device management group, I guess, can try to say like, you know, you must expose a field called driver version, but like, what if you don't have drivers? or anything like that. Like it's a little unclear to me. Like I don't know how transferable this is for every device.
Amita.
I mean, all GPU devices need drivers, so it should be pretty standard. Is your concern that are not exposed through DRA, or
I mean, it's not just, I mean, I guess for GPUs, but I don't know about like FPGAs or other accelerators or network
okay, yeah.
devices and other stuff like that. Or, there's talks about making a DRA with a CPU driver. And I don't know if like there will be drivers for CPUs. And so it gets a little, I'm just like, I think every DRA driver, and there's also the part where you have a DRA driver, which is the DRA version, and then there's like the GPU drivers, and there's like multiple layers here. So I mean,
But today DRA is primarily starting with GPUs, so maybe we can split this into just GPU driver management and like have subsections if we want to tackle it that way.
So this requirement is specifically about accelerator drivers.
Exactly.
Right, and I'm wondering if it's worth splitting it. And the device management group can find it, like probably be the better people to answer this question. But if we want to like split it, that might help us keep things in scope. And then we can drill into each of the new ones. Because today DRA is only for GPUs, if I remember correctly.
it's for pretty much most things now. Like there's a lot of interest in making it for network devices and
Okay.
things like
I mean,
that.
there should be drivers. I'd be very surprised if there aren't, but I'll have to go double check for sure.
But yeah, like coming back to that, like I would really say like this section needs to be like step by step. The first item being just accelerator drivers needs to be there, right? And then a separate one for DRA. I'm not sure about the unhealthy status, if that's like already supported by all drivers or if that should be a separate should also. I would tend to separate that out too. At least I haven't seen, at least especially with older versions of NVIDIA drivers, that they do report unhealthy status up to the node level. But I do not remember fully. Because then it's easier to say, okay, drivers need to be there. That's a must. Everything else is should, until we get to DRA version being a driver version in DRA being more of a common thing in AI with accelerators. Then we can make it a must. And the should is still giving incentives, right?
Yeah.
By the way, I don't think we should add like new musts right now because I feel like it's kind of late in the game to do that kind of change right now. Can we?
But would it work without a driver? Like I'm just like logically, we're asking people to run a GPU machine or an accelerated AI, and without a driver, this would not work. Like implicitly, this is already a must, because later on we have musts of needs to be running, I don't know, Ray or something else that runs AI workloads, right? You wouldn't be able to run any AI workload without a driver.
Yeah, and I don't think that's what this is about. Like the GPU vendors will install device, or they'll have the device drivers. The question is more about like what they need to expose so that like people know what version that is, and like is it just a single driver is what they need, or we have DRA drivers, we have the GPU drivers. There's just a lot of different things that we have to expose. Like if we want to say, because like when you're saying driver, like I agree, like you will need drivers installed.
Because it only says correctly installed and maintained. The other 2 points, they're additions, right?
Yeah, I guess I don't know what this means. to be honest. Like the accelerator drivers, I don't know if that means that, host GPU drivers or a DRA driver or a device plugin version. Like none of this, it's not that clear to me. And like I imagine it will change from vendor to vendor. So that's kind of, but I mean, I think this is more like device management. We could work with them to figure out ways to standardize this.
Andre, go ahead.
Yeah, just maybe quickly. I think like so since the array has its own conformance program, is there any way for us to cross-reference from here and put it under the chute instead of having this detailed explanation for accelerators?
I can also answer this. The problem is there is not yet a DRA conformance program. So that's basically, yes, once there is one and the proposal comes through and they are building one, then we can reference to this. However, as long as it is not in place, because this would also imply that, or there are two different things to consider here, because the DRA conformance program would most likely be obtained by vendors like NVIDIA, AMD, and stuff like this, and not so much by the vendors who are running like the platform topic. Because they would, like, I want to certify my hardware that I am compatible with Kubernetes and DA and stuff like this. So we would basically reference to whatever comes that we would support devices, or you must support devices, or you should support devices that are compatible with the DRA conformance program, and so on. And now I forgot what I originally wanted to talk about.
You were specifically talking about why there's a problem with trying to cross-reference.
Yeah, that's why I was finished. No, the other reason why I raised my hand. Musts and shoulds. So I think, or not I think, last week we agreed on the set of musts, and basically for the announcement round that we want to do at KubeCon North America, we settled on the musts last week, and we added one additional must last week. And I'm open to discuss new musts once we've went through all of the shoulds, then to also follow the release cycle. So we Pooja, or an idea would be that we say, okay, this is something that could move to a must for the next release, like not 1.35 but 1.36. So that we have like enough time to implement this from a process perspective and from a perspective for vendors. So I agree that you need a driver, but I think from a timing perspective, it would be too hard to enter this now as a must, to not jeopardize.
I'm just worried we will create confusion if like a driver is like driver installation is a should, but like AI is like being able to run something is. But then maybe we need to like change the wording a bit.
I think it's not correct to say you cannot run AI workloads without GPUs or drivers.
Okay.
I think it really depends on, previously we're talking about edge, right? And sometimes you could have different, type of accelerators there, right? Or, even you can run it even on CPUs, right?
Right.
We're not really speaking about, Gen AI or LLMs here, right? I think the scope is much broader. This is why I think we need to be really careful about speaking about different accelerators here. And necessarily
that's a good point.
Platforms, right?
Yeah. Good point, Andre. Thanks.
Okay, for the sake of timekeeping, should we now change this and remove the highlighted part because we have it as an extra should? And what else do we need from a rephrasing perspective?
I just removed this part, and then we don't need to rephrase based on Andre's feedback. I think that makes sense.
Any other remarks to this? Are we good with this? Great. Then can I remove things? Can I bold? Yeah. Then it just needs to approve it afterwards. All right. I think then we are also cleared this one, right? So the advertisement of the version, and also then to follow up with whatever comes out of DRA based on the discussion there. Kevin, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, there's a second bullet point about nodes must accurately report an unhealthy status or error condition. I guess this one's a little confusing to me, as like I'm not exactly sure. Like I don't know if we even have that in Kubernetes at all yet. Like we don't have a standard condition for reporting health status on the node level. Like the DRA drivers might report that, but it isn't. Like, is this something that we still want to have as a should, or?
And should it be maybe separate? Because then it's a separate should, so you can at least fulfill part of that.
And I mean, I agree with the stance. I know that there is a KEP that is going out around trying to have these error conditions and device drivers to propagate these, but I don't know if it actually makes its way into a node condition at the moment.
I mean, do we just cross-checking something? Sorry for scrolling. I mean, theoretically, we could also just have the reporting done to the observability stack, so that
That's how it's usually done right now.
Yeah, exactly. That we basically say, okay, we don't have it as a requirement to report the unhealthy status to the accelerator, but more that you have like a monitoring of those nodes in place, and then this would be basically a part of observability. Pooja.
Yeah, I think the problem and why we might want to have that sooner or later in node status is just scheduling, right? You want to enable standardized scheduling, and especially in the future, most probably more natively within K8s. So the current ones, like the current way of doing it with observability is actually just a workaround, right? So most probably we don't want to kind of stay with this kind of way. We would want to have it at some point available to a scheduler. Not sure how Q does it right now, how it detects that an accelerator is unhealthy and then schedules to a different machine.
I mean, what the only problem that I have is I don't want to add something that we don't have yet as a should,
exactly.
right? That's my main concern there. But I agree, especially for the scheduling part, because we just basically want to rotate machines if they are failing for whatever reason in an automated way, especially on larger platforms.
So the idea is that we want to also leverage this as a chance to signal the community and the developers that this is where we want for AI conformant cluster to look like, and then we can all go implement it in a conformant way. And there's also one item at the bottom that's related to this about failed device detection.
Yeah.
And that's also related.
Yeah, that's all I was gonna say. Is I feel like I think we're all agree that this should be it should be somewhere. I think that maintenance and repairs, it makes more sense to me if like that has to be part of this more so than the accelerator side.
Okay, then I would basically go ahead and also remove or move this into the maintenance part more or less. I mean, that's already there more or less. But that basically we just agree on, okay, we have a mechanism for ensuring compatible accelerator drivers are installed correctly, right? Are we good with this? Great, then.
And as far as I know, DRA is also going in that direction to have health of the DRA device exposed, right?
Yeah. Great.
Correct. Yes, it's alpha, I believe.
Yeah.
All right. GPU sharing. Provide well-defined mechanisms for GPU sharing to improve utilization for workloads that do not require a full dedicated GPU. If hardware-level partitioning is supported, these fractional GPU resources should be exposed as a distinct schedulable resource via DIA. If software-based sharing, for example, time slicing, is supported, device plugins should be used to allow oversubscription of GPUs with forward-looking path to DIA once it's supported. Comments, remarks
I think, like,
to this?
correct me, but I think this is still alpha and we are still waiting for vendor support for this one. The cap itself for partitionable is still alpha and as of 134.
For DRA.
Yeah,
Yes.
for DRA. Yep.
Pooja,
If you're
go ahead.
saying we can use ahead of time partitioning instead of dynamic partitioning, that should work with the device plugin.
I think dynamic partitioning is also like slightly misleading sometimes in this context because it's dynamic in the way if the GPU is empty, right? It's never, at least most GPUs do not support any partitioning without an empty GPU. But I feel like, are we kind of maybe putting too much in there? Like, do we really care if it allows oversubscription? For example, like, is that going a bit too far maybe? But generally, I don't think it's a big problem to have sharing as a should in there, right?
Yeah, I guess one more aspect to this is like how widely is this feature available? Is it just NVIDIA or other vendors will also have support for the sharing? If
I mean that's basically why it also specifics that if hardware level partitioning is supported, or that's why it's explicitly said that it is only, or we only want to have this if it is supported by the specific vendor. And I mean, we are not, we cannot be sure in which direction the other vendors will go in the future, right? That's also the problem with this whole thing.
Yeah, I think that's where, and I think that's why I'm thinking like that some of these DRA related items are probably left to the DRA conformance work group, and many of, I mean, the base thing just went GA, and many of the features are still alpha. Drivers aren't available, so why should we rush and add shoots for that?
I don't think the DRA part is a must there, right? It's more about the functionality that if the hardware level supports partitioning, you should expose partitioning to.
So it does say as distinct schedulable resources via DRA in the GPU sharing on this.
It's another should, right? It's not a must.
Agree, but this is more like a roadmap item. Like, let us have drivers that actually support this before we even add a should for this. This is like
So
forward
then we
looking.
need to just pull out DRA again, right? Because I think the should for GPU sharing should be there, but if DRA is not possible, then that
Right.
can be
Yeah.
separated out.
Exactly. Yeah, that can be separated out. Yeah.
Andre, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I think I have the same thoughts. I think like we need to probably answer whether we want to be specific to NVIDIA GPUs here, right? Because like, there are many devices where sharing probably doesn't really make sense in terms of how devices, have been created. I'm wondering whether like that it gives much value for us to be specific here to NVIDIA GPUs.
Yeah, maybe like Rita was suggesting, at the if accelerator supports GPU sharing in the top, like before everything else. So then it's clear that this is only because I know like the Huawei devices, for example, I just came back from China. The Huawei devices also do GPU sharing, so they have some partitioning support too. So we're not really fully just NVIDIA based here, but definitely not all devices, as you said, Andre.
And I agree also with Rita that especially because the DRA conformance program is still in its founding phase, that we don't lose those topics. And I mean, it's a living conformance is a living document, right? So we still can change this based on what comes out of DRA in the future. But I don't want to lose the idea of we have GPUs that support sharing, and ideally your platform should also support those sharing capabilities. That's the idea, right? So that you can or your users can utilize those features if they are available.
Yeah, maybe we can, just make it more generic. Like, for example, if your platform provides accelerators which allows you to optimize cost by, using some, technologies like time sharing, slicing, etc., you should provide this capability to your users, right? I don't know. Yeah, I think we are already saying this right in the second sentence, as I can see, right? To improve utilization for workloads, but I agree. I agree that this is important, but the question how to make it vendor neutral, right? It's
Rita?
Yeah, can I ask the origin of adding this as a requirement? Is the intent to say, hey, for AI conformance, this platform should really offer an accelerator that supports GPU sharing? Or is it more about if you support an accelerator that supports GPU sharing, you should be exposing them through DRA? Like, which one is it?
It's the latter.
The latter. Okay. Then yeah, okay. Then it's more about DRA, right? Okay.
Although, like pre-DRA, it's also expose them on the
Possible.
Kubernetes level, right? Like it's
It's-
already possible to expose MIG and time slicing to workloads on Kubernetes, right? Without DRA.
Yeah, so if say if a user wants to use an accelerator that supports GPU sharing, and they want to just use the old way and not through DRA. Is that not conformant?
That should be conformant, right? Because I mean, DRA is currently not even supported by all the accelerator. Right?
Okay.
So that's why, like, we should pull out the DRA stuff maybe a little bit more, at least for the first version, until we get like more vendors involved into being better DRA compliant. But it's like, it's the difference between like some GPUs support ways of partitioning that they don't expose on the Kubernetes level, and then for end users that's super hard to use then. Like they need to hack their way around it. But those that do expose it at least on a Kubernetes level, that can then be used by VLLM and Q and all these software that we run. Yeah, Rita. Yeah, I wasn't. I didn't want to assume we have an agreement here on pulling out DRA bits, but maybe we need to separate them at least into a different should to be able to ensure a different level of conformance. Especially if it's currently not even on the market that device driver exposes these things via DRA.
I think that's why the last sentence is with a forward-looking path to DRA once it's supported. That's why it's that.
And there's another should involved there, so that's fine if we interpret it as a double should.
May I actually just suggest for if hardware level partitioning is supported, these fractional GPU resources should be exposed as a distinct schedule of resources via DRA. Can we add in once it's supported? That might actually help with some of that as well. So not there, Mario, but literally copying that up. Yes, copying that up to the next sentence. Then it's very clear that the old way is still supported and the new way is going to be supported. But once DRA is supported, then we're set to go. Thank you.
Is this okay for the majority? We have 9 minutes left. Do we want to dive into virtualized accelerators? We can give it a try. Come on. Virtualized accelerators. If the platform supports virtualized accelerator technologies, e.g. vGPUs, these should also be exposable and manageable via DRA, maintaining consistency with physical fractional GPUs.
I think maybe similar tweaks around what's possible today versus what will be possible with DRA.
DRA is making this so much harder than it was.
If
I
only we
love
can,
DRA,
yeah.
but this is just making it harder.
Yeah, if we can just blink and all the drivers show up magically. Yeah.
What was the motivation for including this row? Like I mean, I guess virtual GPUs. I don't even know if they're. It seems like I thought that's. I only know if NVIDIA has this option, right?
I think vSphere, with vSphere, you can do that with NVIDIA below.
Okay.
Like I've seen someone do it, but it's like icky, and it costs a shit ton because it's Broadcom.
I mean, I'm fine with if the platform supports it. I was just curious of like how important this is to spell out here. If this is like a wide use case.
I think this will go into folks wanting to use VMs as a stronger isolation boundary for their workloads. And I believe this should also work with Linux word stacks, the non-VMware ones.
Yeah, there's also some NVIDIA things there where like you share like it's all the old way of sharing a GPU between machines, but that's I've never seen it in a data center, honestly. But yeah, it's fine to keep it, I guess, like for those that have that. You're a big community.
Yeah,
There'll
this one
always be
is
like 10% of people doing this.
yeah, this one is more for DRA, not for vGPU. So you don't have to support vGPU, but if you do, please use DRA. That's the
Yeah, so I think I'm reading it the other way. Like its title is virtualized accelerators, and I think like as someone pointed out in chat, vGPU should work with KubeVirt. That's my understanding as well. Do we know if any work is in progress with DRA there?
For KubeVirt, yeah,
Okay.
there was a kept merged, and they've been working towards that.
Okay, all right. So I think today it should work with just the NVIDIA GPU operator device plugin, and then future should be DRA. Again, the wider question will be, is this an NVIDIA only thing, or do we know if Intel or AMD also support similar features?
I think this is more on the hypervisor than on the accelerator vendor.
Right.
But okay, so we can keep it as is because it basically says that if you support it, then please also show it.
Don't want to also ensure like we have a similar tweak about forward looking to DRA because that's not there yet. We want to support the current way.
Yeah, I think that second part is important, like maintaining consistency with physical fractional GPUs. Like, so it should be the same. Like the end user shouldn't care if it's a vGPU or a normal GPU.
Yeah.
And then the DRA part is once supported or something. I have no idea if it's supported or not.
Okay. So we've finished 4. We have a couple of more to go. We are almost out of time. Thanks everyone for the input. One question regarding this, is there an interest to have or continue this also in an offline discussion so that we can get some more speed, or do we want to go through this step by step in the meetings? I know discussion in meetings is usually a little bit faster and not as async, but I just want to open up the floor if there's anyone has the need to move to an offline discussion as well.
so Justin, go ahead. I sent a proposal to create a working group repo for us to do some discussion in GitHub. That might help. Justin?
Yeah, and if I recall, what we did for must was we sort of gathered a list of objections or discussion points. And as far as I can tell, for should, we are going through them all. Maybe we should, maybe we could like see if there's any reason to discuss any of the shoulds, right? If it's only a should and no one objects, maybe we don't even need to discuss it type thing. Because I mean, we're a big group, so I'm sure someone will raise something, and at least it will focus the discussion, right?
Yeah, I think we can also do this because we have some of the shoulds where we still have comments, and I would recommend that please everyone again go through the shoulds, so focus only on the shoulds, and add your comments if they are missing some or something has not been resolved yet, so that we can basically then funnel this together and talk about the open points there. Please keep in mind that you only start with hardware topology awareness because the top ones we resolved from my perspective. All right. We are at the top of the hour. Thanks everyone for joining. Thanks for the discussion. Thanks for the input. See you next week. I will be out next week because I will be traveling. However, have a nice day and have a nice weekend. And thanks for joining. I will stop the recording now.